I didn't come to stop the wedding. I came for the truth. But when the cathedral doors flew open behind me and every head turned, it wasn't truth I felt. It was rage. Pure, molten, breath-stealing rage. The kind that simmers for years beneath your ribs, waiting for one perfect moment to rise. This was mine. My heels struck marble like gunshots as I walked down the center aisle. Gold-draped pews lined either side, filled with men who kill for money and women who kill for sport. And at the front of it all was him, Dario Ballenti, the man who left me to die, the man who never said goodbye, the man who apparently was getting married to someone else. I didn't look at her, the new bride, his latest alliance. All I saw was his face, cold, hard, beautiful in a way that made my stomach turn. He hadn't changed, not in the way he looked at me, not in the way his jaw locked when I spoke the words that cracked the entire room in half. You can't marry her. Silence. He's already married. To me. The priest choked. His new bride gasped. Someone in the pews muttered Madonna Santa under their breath. And Dario? Dario didn't say a damn word. He didn't deny it, didn't flinch, didn't so much as glance at the trembling woman beside him. His eyes stayed on mine. Dark, calculating, burning with something that wasn't regret, wasn't guilt. It was possession, as if I'd never stopped being his, as if I was never supposed to speak. 2 years. That's how long it's been since I woke up alone in a sterile white hospital bed, my body broken, my memories fractured. The last thing I remembered was Dario's voice, rough with panic. Don't move, I'll fix this. He never came back, not to the hospital, not to me, not to finish what we started or end it. No divorce papers, no explanation, just silence. I rebuilt a life, a small one, quiet. I convinced myself it was freedom, but the truth is, it was exile. And now, standing here in the heart of his world, in front of the 5 Mafia families, beneath a Vatican seal, interrupting a wedding that was clearly more political than romantic, I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. I didn't come for the truth. I came for him. You've made your point, cara mia. His voice dropped like a blade. Low, commanding, Italian laced through the syllables, coating every vowel in venom and silk. I hated how my spine reacted, how my breath caught. Escort my wife out, he said to the guards flanking the pews. My wife. He said it without hesitation, without blinking, as if the last 2 years had been a pause, not an abandonment. 2 guards approached. I stood taller, lifting my chin. Touch me, and I'll scream loud enough to bring the press in. One of them hesitated. Smart man. The other looked at Dario, waiting for a nod, but Dario didn't give it. He walked, down the altar, past the bride, who stood frozen in fury, past the priest, who looked ready to flee, and straight to me. He stopped just close enough for me to smell him. Cedar, smoke, and that faint leather note I used to bury my face in. You should have stayed gone, he murmured. I did, I said quietly. You're the one playing house while still wearing my ring. His gaze dropped, and that's when I saw it. He still had it. A ring of black steel, carved with the initials KM, hidden beneath the cuff of a tailored sleeve. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. You never filed the papers, I said. I didn't need to, he replied, voice sharp. You're mine. I forgot how cruel he could be, how easy it was for him to claim, to take, to own, without apology. But even after 2 years, even with a scar that still throbs when it rains, part of me still knew how to play this game. And yet, I whispered, stepping closer, you walked away. His jaw twitched, a small tick, but I knew it. It meant the truth hurt. He didn't respond, not right away. Just studied me with that impossible intensity, as if looking through the makeup, the dress, the armor I'd wrapped myself in. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't for me, it was for the entire cathedral. La ceremonia è finita. The ceremony is over. He took a sentence, because it was. I turned and walked out. Not escorted, not dragged, and just before I reached the doors, I heard him say one more thing, low, to someone behind him. Bring her to the estate. Tonight. I don't remember the first hit. That's what they don't tell you about trauma. You don't remember the sound, the scream, the flash of red behind your eyes, not even the pain. You remember after. Waking up to IV lines in your arm, a nurse's soft voice telling you it's a miracle you survived, the absence of the man you love, the silence so loud it makes your bones ache. I lived. That should have been enough, but it wasn't. Not when the one person who was supposed to come running never did. Not when the man who promised to protect me left me there. Broken, alone, married, and now... pretending to marry someone else. They came for me just after sundown. 2 black cars parked outside the crumbling apartment I'd been calling home. My landlord, Mr. Pellegrini, a quiet ex-boxer who owed me nothing, tried to lie for me. "She's not home." One of Dario's men leaned in. "Then why is her light on?" I could have run. I'd done it before. Different names, different cities. I knew how to disappear, but something in me was done running. So I stepped into the hall, bare feet, eyes hard. "I'm right here." They didn't touch me, not like I expected. One simply opened the car door and said, "He wants you safe." Safe. That word tasted like rust in my mouth. The drive took an hour. I didn't ask where we were going. I knew. The Ballenti estate sat on the cliffs outside Portofino like it owned the ocean. Brutal architecture. Iron gates, men with guns, and more secrets buried in its walls than the Vatican. I'd been here before. Once, on our wedding night. Back when I still believed in things like vows. They took me through the side entrance this time, like I was something to be hidden. I didn't care. I kept my shoulders straight, my mouth shut. But the moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. Warmth, spices, that same impossible mix of sandalwood and smoke that lived in his skin. He was here. I felt him before I saw him. "Where is he?" I asked. One of the guards, this one younger, nervous, jerked his head toward the second floor. "Office." He said wait in the gold salon. Of course he did, the gold salon. As if we were pretending I was some dignitary instead of the girl he abandoned. Still, I went. I sat on the same velvet settee where I once curled into his chest, whispering stupid dreams. And when he finally entered the room, everything in me froze. Not because of how he looked, though God help me, Dario Ballenti still looked like power in a suit. No, it was the way he closed the door behind him. Like he was locking me in. "You should have let me explain." His voice was quiet. Controlled. But it cracked something in me. 2 years, I said. "You had 2 years. I thought you were dead." I laughed, sharp, bitter. "Then you should have buried me, Dario, not moved on like I never existed." He took a step forward, then another. I didn't move. "You disappeared," he said. "You refused to be found." I waited in that hospital for 2 months. My voice shook. 2 months before I realized you weren't coming. His jaw clenched. "If I had known, you did know, or you didn't care. Which is worse?" He didn't answer, because there was no right answer. I stood. "If you wanted me safe, you should have shown up then. Not now. Not when you're about to marry some plastic Mafia princess with a title you probably paid for. She's gone." That stopped me. "What?" "She packed her things and left," he said. "After you made your announcement." "So that's it," I whispered. "One broken wedding and you just dragged me back here like nothing happened?" "No," he said. "Not like nothing happened, like everything is happening exactly how it was, always meant to." I felt the tears press against my lashes. I hated that. I hated him for still knowing how to disarm me. "I needed you," I said. "I know. I was dying." "I know." He stepped closer, just close enough for me to see the crack in his armor. "I kept your ring," he said, "because I knew if you were alive, one day you'd come back." "You don't get to say that." "I do," he said simply, "because you did." I didn't run, not when he stepped closer, not when he reached out, fingertips brushing mine, but I didn't fall either. Because the last time I fell for Dario Ballenti, I almost didn't get back up. I forgot how quiet this house could be. Not the absence of sound kind of quiet, but the waiting kind. The kind that lives in the walls, that watches you while you sleep, that hums beneath your skin like a warning. Ballenti men don't build homes, they build fortresses. And Dario's? It still smells like war. He didn't give me a room. He gave me our room, as if nothing had changed, as if 2 years hadn't passed. As if the blood on the sheets that night didn't stain the foundation beneath us. I stared at the same 4-poster bed, the same silk curtains, the same view of the sea from the arched balcony, and the same photo of me, still on the nightstand. Not a wedding picture. One he took the night I fell asleep in his lap, curled up like a secret. I didn't even know he'd kept it. Now it sat in a gold frame, untouched by time, mocking me. He came in just before midnight. No knock, no warning, just the sound of leather shoes and a silence that dared me to speak first. "You're in my room," he said quietly. I turned. It was mine too. His gaze dropped to the silk camisole I wore, the one I found folded in the drawer, still smelling faintly of him. It wasn't supposed to be a weapon, but it was. His eyes darkened. "I kept your things." "Why?" "Because I never meant to let you go." He stepped forward. I stepped back. But there was nowhere to go. My spine met the bedpost. He stopped inches away. "You want to scream?" he asked, voice low. "Slap me again? Do it." "I already did," I whispered. My gaze flicked to his cheek, where a faint red mark still lived from earlier. And then he reached up, not to grab or hold, to touch. The pad of his thumb brushed the edge of my jaw, soft, reverent, dangerous, like a man tracing something he used to own. My heart thundered. This was the part I'd forgotten. Not the pain, not the anger. The pull. How Dario's presence could swallow a room. How every inch of him whispered ruin and heat and promise. How standing this close to him felt like standing on a wire between heaven and hell. And still, I didn't move. "Hold on. Before I say what happened next, tell me this. Are you the type to run or the type to stay? Because a man that could leave you alone to die is too cruel. Honestly, I thought I would run, but he is in my soul, so I stayed. Now, let's get back to my story and my devil in a suit." I broke the silence first. "You should have buried me," I whispered. "I couldn't. You did." "I didn't know how to grieve you," he said, "so I didn't." "Then why the wedding? Why her?" He didn't lie. It was leverage. Her father controls the Adriatic ports. We needed access. His empire, his war. "You were using her." "Yes, and me." He stared at me. "No," he said, "I never used you." I shoved him. Hard. He let it land, let my hands press flat against his chest, didn't even flinch. "You walked away." "I had to." "You chose to." He caught roughed, not bruising, but possessive. "Don't test me, Kristine," he said, voice like gravel. "Not when you already know I'd burn this house down if it meant keeping you inside it." My breath hitched. His grip loosened, and he let go. I turned away before he could see the betrayal in my eyes. Because the truth was, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe there was a reason. A plan. A world where I'd never been abandoned. Just hidden. But I wasn't stupid. I was still his wife, which meant I was still in the line of fire. He left without another word. And as the door clicked shut, I stared down at the silk camisole, the photo, the ring still on his finger, and realized something I hadn't dared to feel in years. Hope. Terrible, dangerous, heart-cracking hope. They say Mafia marriages are built on blood or power, but never love. I used to think we were the exception, that somehow what Dario and I had was real enough to survive both. Now I know better, because love doesn't vanish for 2 years. Love doesn't leave you in a hospital bed and walk away. And love doesn't wear a tuxedo at the altar with someone else, even if that someone else was never meant to be a wife. Her name was Alessandra Riva. Daughter of Franco Riva, Sicilian port magnate, arms broker, and according to the whispers I heard growing up, an absolute monster. She was everything I wasn't, poised, dead-eyed, born into power, and now apparently gone. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. But that didn't stop me from wandering down the hall the next morning and finding her silk veil tossed across the floor like a discarded weapon. The staff wouldn't meet my eyes. They knew who I was now. The ghost wife. The one who ruined everything. I didn't love her. His voice came from the shadowed end of the corridor. I turned, already tired of his voice, his excuses. "She knew that going in," he added. "Did she?" I asked. "Because she looked ready to commit international war crimes just to finish those vows." "She wanted the name," he said, "not the man." I folded my arms. "So you were going to let her wear your ring just for business?" "No," he said flatly, "because my ring doesn't come off." I stilled. He meant it literally. The black steel band was still on his finger, still marked with my initials, still gleaming like a secret no one ever questioned. And now, not a secret anymore. "She wanted to be queen," he said, stepping closer, "but she would have made a terrible one." I swallowed. "And me?" His jaw tensed. "You were never meant to wear a crown." There it was. The reminder that I would never lead his empire, that no matter how much he wanted me near him, it would always be behind him. I wasn't the power. I was the vulnerability, the weakness he'd tried to cut out of himself. "Why now?" I asked. He frowned. "Why bring me back now?" I said. "Why not let me stay gone? You were about to be married, Dario. If I hadn't walked in, you'd have made that deal, sealed that alliance, lied to her face." "I wouldn't have said the vows," he muttered. "Because you don't believe in them?" "Because I already did it once," he said, "and I meant it." The silence between us felt thick, charged, like a live wire in the rain. "You still don't get it," he said, voice rougher now. "You weren't supposed to wake up. You weren't supposed to come back." And yet, I whispered, here I am. He stared at me. I expected something cruel, cold. Instead, his voice broke. You think I didn't want to come to you? That I didn't try? His chest rose with a sharp breath. There were threats, Kristine. There were people watching every move I made. If they knew you survived. He didn't finish, because the truth landed between us anyway. Someone wanted me dead, and Dario had let the world believe I was. You could have told me, I said, warned me. If I had, you'd be buried. He meant it, and I hated that I believed him. I didn't forgive him, not then. Not yet. But I didn't leave either. That afternoon I stepped out onto the upper balcony. The wind off the Ligurian coast tangled in my hair, salty and sharp. Below, the ocean crashed like thunder. And beyond the gates, I saw them. Cars, cameras, paparazzi, enemies, rivals. Everyone who mattered in this world had seen what I'd done, heard what I'd said. He's already married, to me. And now they were watching to see if I'd live long enough to regret it. Inside, the estate's security doubled. Dario's soldiers flanked every door. My phone was confiscated. A perimeter was set. Not for my protection, for his. Because having me back wasn't just emotional, it was political. It made him vulnerable in a way the 5 families couldn't ignore. And Dario Ballenti never let anyone see his weakness, except me. I found him that night in his war room, not the office, the one below ground beneath the wine cellar behind 2 iron doors. The last time I was down here, we were planning our honeymoon. Now? He stood over a table of maps, cigarette burning low between his fingers, eyes darker than ever. I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because when he looked up at me, the words were already there. You started a war today, he said. No, I said. I reminded them who your real wife is. The first time I saw Dario Ballenti kill a man, he didn't blink. It was 2 weeks after our wedding. He'd kissed me goodbye that morning, whispered something sweet in Italian against my shoulder, and 12 hours later his white shirt was soaked in blood and he said, don't ask. So I didn't. But I remembered the way he washed his hands, slowly, carefully, like he was scrubbing away more than flesh. That man is gone. Because the Dario I looked at now, the one standing in the shadows of his private chapel staring down at his ring with a storm in his eyes, he doesn't wash the blood off anymore. He lets it stain. I found him there by accident. I was wandering, avoiding, trying not to remember the way his touch still lingers in my skin. The chapel wasn't large, just stone walls, a marble altar, and 1 iron crucifix mounted overhead. It always felt too quiet, too reverent for a man like him. But he came here often. I used to wonder why. Now I think it was the only place left that he couldn't control. He heard me before I stepped inside. You should be asleep. I couldn't. His voice didn't change. You still talk in your sleep. I blinked. You still listen? I never stopped. I crossed the threshold, arms folded to protect myself from him, from me. I saw what you did, I said softly, to the man who tried to shoot me 2 years ago. He didn't respond. I thought you weren't like them. I'm worse, he said. He wasn't lying. He was never the kind of man who spilled secrets or confessed sins. But tonight, something cracked. I gave you up, he said, and for that I deserve hell. My breath caught. I told myself it was for your safety, that I was protecting you. But the truth? His eyes met mine, dark, hollow, hungry. I couldn't watch you bleed again. I couldn't watch you die. He said it like a confession. And for the first time since I'd walked back into his world, I saw it. The grief, the rage, the love he still didn't know what to do with. I should have looked away. I didn't. What happens now? I asked. He stepped closer. This isn't a game, Kristine. They saw you. They know you're alive. So protect me. His jaw clenched. That's exactly what I'm doing. No, I said, stepping into him. What you're doing is hiding me, sheltering me, locking me in this house like I'm some porcelain secret. I am protecting you. Then let me stand beside you. That stopped him. Hard, because I wasn't supposed to say that. I was supposed to beg to leave or scream or sob. I was supposed to do what he expected. But the girl he left in that hospital bed died. And the woman standing in front of him now? She'd already been marked. You want to stand beside me? He said, voice deadly quiet. I want the truth. No more lies. No more games. I want to know who tried to kill me, and I want to know why. He stepped even closer. The crucifix overhead cast a thin, twisted shadow across his cheek. You really want that truth? He asked. I nodded. His hand lifted slowly, deliberately, and brushed my hair off my shoulder. Then he leaned in. breath hot against my neck. "I think you already know," he whispered. The chill that went through me wasn't fear, it was recognition, because deep down, part of me had always suspected it wasn't just a random hit, that it wasn't a rival or a message or a mistake, that whoever ordered it had access, had reason, had his trust. I stepped back. "Who inside your house hates me that much?" His eyes didn't flinch. "I'm going to find out." I left the chapel before he could say more, because if I didn't, I would have asked the question that burned behind my teeth. What if it was someone you still protect? What if the person who tried to kill me still lives under your roof? I slept in his bed that night, not with him, just beside his scent, beneath the weight of silk sheets and memories I couldn't kill. And when I woke up, there was a single envelope on the pillow beside me, my name on the front. Inside, a list of names, 5 of them, all his men, all loyal, all suspects, and written at the bottom in that sharp, slanted scrawl I used to trace with my finger, "Start here." I didn't sleep, not really. I laid in his bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet creaks of a house that never really sleeps either. Every corner whispered memories. Every breath of wind off the sea tasted like his name. Dario. I used to fall asleep in this bed with his arms around me and his voice in my ear. Now I fall asleep wondering which of his men might have tried to end my life. The list he left on my pillow didn't help. 5 names. No explanations. Just men I used to see at our table. Men who called me Signora Ballenti with polite smiles and hidden eyes. And now I was supposed to start here. Start peeling back secrets that lived beneath Dario's roof, buried in loyalty, blood, and the kind of silence that gets you killed. I sat in the breakfast room by dawn, robe tight around me, list in my hand. My tea had gone cold. The first name was familiar. Luca, his second in command, loyal since they were 16. He'd been best man at our wedding. I remembered the toast he gave, slurred with champagne and honor. If anyone hurts her, I'll end them before Dario gets the chance. Now I couldn't help but wonder if he'd been the one holding the knife. He entered the room like a storm held in skin. No tie, black shirt half-buttoned, hair damp from the sea or a shower or a fight. I couldn't tell. He didn't speak right away, just looked at me, at the list, at the way my hand trembled slightly. "You were supposed to sleep. You were supposed to protect me." Silence. "Then, do you want the truth, Kristine? Or do you want to keep pretending I'm the man you married?" I stood. "I want both." He crossed to me in 2 slow steps, took the list from my hand and folded it, slipped it into his pocket like a promise. Then his hand rose, brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're the only thing I ever believed in," he said, voice low. "But belief doesn't stop bullets. Neither does silence." "I'm not silent," he said. "I'm watching." "Then start talking." "Okay, before I tell you what he did next, are you still with me? Because this is where he cracked me open with the truth that I wasn't ready to hear even when I asked for it. Now, let's get back to my downfall." He didn't answer me, not right away. He just slid something across the table. A phone. Encrypted. Familiar. Mine. The one I'd used 2 years ago. The one that went missing after the hospital. I stared at it. "Where did you? I had someone watching you." "What?" Dario's expression didn't change. "After the hospital, after I found out you survived, I kept eyes on you." "You mean you spied on me?" "No," he said. "I kept you breathing." My throat closed. I wanted to scream. Cry. Throw the damn phone at his chest and call him every name he deserved. But instead, I opened it. Same wallpaper. A blurry shot of the sea from our honeymoon in Montenegro. Same apps, same password, same photo album, and in the deleted folder, a video, time-stamped 5 days before the attack. I tapped play. It was me, smiling, on our balcony, the wind catching my hair, my voice laughing, Dario's voice behind the camera saying, "Che bella sei, amore." My God, I hadn't heard his voice like that in 2 years. Not cold, not clipped, soft, warm, alive. When it ended, I didn't realize I was crying until his thumb brushed the tear away. "I never stopped watching," he said. "Then why didn't you come back?" "Because I thought you hated me." "I did." Pause. "I still do," I whispered. But my hand was on his chest, and I didn't pull away. He leaned in. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just breath against breath. Heat, memory, regret, and that same impossible ache that said, this was never supposed to end. "Kristine," he murmured, and I hated how my name sounded like a prayer in his mouth. I didn't sleep that night either. Not because of fear, but because I knew the war had already started. And this time, I wasn't the casualty. I was the reason. Power doesn't look the way you think it does. It doesn't scream. It doesn't swagger. It waits, silent, still, watching everything from the highest place in the room and daring the world to challenge it. That's Dario Ballenti. He doesn't move fast. He doesn't yell. He just decides. And when he does, men fall in line or fall into graves. He took me with him that morning. No warning. No discussion. Just a silk blouse left on my bed and a driver waiting at the front steps. The guards didn't question it. The staff didn't speak. And I didn't ask where we were going until we were already halfway down the coast in a convoy of black SUVs. He sat beside me in the back seat, legs wide. One hand on his thigh, the other holding a tablet he barely looked at. Where are we going? You'll see. Is it safe? No. He didn't say anything else until we pulled up to the harbor. Rows of shipping containers, dock workers, armed men in dark coats. And at the center of it all, a warehouse that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in decades. He stepped out. I followed, because I had a feeling if I didn't, I'd regret it. Inside, it smelled like oil and fear. Men flanked every wall, some I recognized, others I didn't. At the center, two were tied to chairs, blood already pooling at their feet. I froze. Dario didn't. He moved through them like a storm in slow motion, unbothered, unhurried. The king on his chessboard. And everyone else? Just pieces. One of the men looked up. His face was battered, one eye swollen shut. Luca, the first name on the list. His lip cracked as he tried to smile at me. Signora. I didn't answer, because I didn't know what this was. A trial, a performance, or a message? Dario stood in front of him. You told me you had her watched. I did, Luca said. But what? She was clean. Until the wedding. We didn't expect her to. To what? Dario's voice dropped an octave. Survive, Luca flinched. The room held its breath. I did too. Dario didn't touch him. He didn't need to. He just leaned in, whispered something I couldn't hear, and walked away. The sound that followed was sharp, metallic, final. The second man never even got a word out. I didn't realize I was shaking until we were back in the car. He reached for me. I jerked away. You said you wanted the truth, he said quietly. I wanted to understand. And now you do. I turned my face to the window, tried to ignore the blood on his cuff. You can't keep me in this, I whispered. You are in this. I didn't choose this. He leaned in, not angry, not smug, just matter of fact. You chose it the day you married me. And he was right. I did. I chose a man who never pretended to be good. I just convinced myself I could survive the bad. We drove in silence after that, until he reached across the seat. His hand found mine. Rough, warm, still stained with war. I didn't pull away, because I knew what this was. Not forgiveness, not comfort, a warning. He would protect me with fire, even if it meant becoming it. I should have left that night. I should have packed what little I had, walked past the guards, and never looked back. Because deep down I knew what was coming. The air had that static feel, like a storm was waiting behind the walls, too polite to knock. But I stayed, because I wanted to believe in something. Maybe him, maybe us. Maybe just the lie that love could still survive in a house that bled power. Whatever it was, it almost got me killed. It started with the lights, a flicker, a hum, then dark. Total, suffocating dark. I was in the upstairs hall barefoot, wearing one of his old shirts because I didn't have the strength to pretend I didn't miss his scent. The silence was too deep to be a mistake, and when the first window shattered downstairs, I ran. Dario wasn't in the estate. He'd left 2 hours ago. A meeting. He didn't say where. He never did. I ran for the panic room, hidden behind the library, second panel from the left. Only he and I knew the code. But I didn't make it, because someone was already inside the house. Footsteps, fast, precise, not guards, not his men. I ducked into a service stairwell, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. The first scream was short, a guard. Then a second, cut off mid-breath. Blood. It smelled like blood. I pressed my hand to the keypad. The panel blinked. Once, twice, access denied. Code changed. He changed the code. I should have screamed. Instead, I froze, and that's when I saw him. Black jacket, covered face, gun in hand. He didn't expect me to run toward him, but I did, because the other option was worse. I slammed into him, hard. We both went down. The gun skidded across the tile. I scrambled up, ran. He grabbed my ankle, pulled. I screamed, kicked, clawed. His mask shifted, and I saw it, the face, the one person I never thought I'd see again. Before I tell you what happens next, this is your warning. After this, nothing stays innocent. Now. Let's get back to the moment it broke. Luca, alive, bleeding, but alive. He grinned through broken teeth. You were always a weakness. I could barely hear him over the roar in my head. The other footsteps came fast. Not his. Dario. I knew it before I saw him, because the second he entered the hallway, everything went still. He didn't yell, didn't blink, just raised the gun and fired. One shot, right between the eyes. Blood sprayed the marble. My skin, my hair. Dario didn't lower the gun. Didn't move, didn't breathe. He was stone. And I collapsed, right there on the floor, shaking so hard I thought my bones would snap. He dropped beside me, pulled me into his arms, held me, tight, fierce, unyielding. As if by holding me close, he could squeeze the terror out of my lungs. I changed the code, he said against my hair. Why? Because I thought I was the danger. I don't remember falling asleep, only that when I woke up, his arms were still around me. And for the first time in 2 years, I believed him when he said I was never supposed to die. I didn't speak for hours. Shock will do that to you. Not the crying kind, not the loud, broken kind, the quiet kind, the kind that crawls into your bones and wraps around your lungs until even breathing feels like a betrayal. He didn't speak either. Dario sat beside me in our room, still in the blood-stained shirt he'd worn when he pulled the trigger. The same shirt I buried my face in the night I first said I love you. Now it smelled like copper and smoke. Like death and devotion. I curled up beneath the sheets, still wearing his clothes. My hair smelled like him. My hands still trembled. And got up. He sat in the chair by the window like a sentinel. One leg crossed, head bowed, fingers laced in thought. We'd been like that before, on the night of my attack. Only back then, I was the one bleeding. Back then, he didn't come back. Now, he hadn't left my side, not once. I thought I saw a ghost, I whispered. He didn't lift his head. You did. I thought you killed him. I did. Then how? I should have checked the body. My throat tightened. He said I was a weakness. Dario's head finally rose. His voice was flat. You are. He wailed back to me and pulled me into his arms. My heart cracked. But before I could pull away, he added, softer now, you're my weakness, the only one I never wanted to live without. Silence wrapped around us. This was not a house of softness, not a life that made space for confessions. But tonight felt different, like something had shifted, like something had finally broken open, and without a word, he lifted the covers and lay down beside me, not touching, not claiming, just there, breathing beside me, letting me exist in the space between terror and safety. I'm sorry, he said, not for Luca, not for the blood, for leaving me. I couldn't do it again, he murmured, hold you while you slipped away. You didn't even try. I didn't know how. His hand found mine beneath the covers, rough, warm, shaking just enough to make me look. You're shaking, I whispered, so are you. We lay like that for what felt like hours, just hearts and breath and memory, until he finally shifted, turned toward me, and pulled me in. His chest was solid heat against mine, his breath brushed my hair, his arm slid beneath my neck, the other anchoring me to him like a man afraid of waking up alone. I pressed my face to his collar. Inhaled. Cedar. Smoke. Dario. Home. I didn't cry until he kissed my temple. Soft, lingering, regretful. I should have stayed. You didn't. He pulled back just enough to look at me. You still wear my ring, he said quietly. I nodded. I never took it off. His eyes burned. Not with heat, with ache. His fingers brushed my jaw, my lips. He leaned in, paused, just an inch from my mouth. But he didn't kiss me. Not yet. He needed me to choose. So I did. I leaned in and kissed him like I was starving for 2 years. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was slow, painful, reverent, breathless. His mouth on mine was familiar and new, like remembering a song I once knew by heart. His hand cupped the back of my head, my fingers fisted in his shirt. He kissed me like he was apologizing. I kissed him like I didn't want to hate him anymore. We didn't speak after. Just held each other in the dark. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like a wife. The morning after he held me, I woke up slowly, and for a moment, I let myself believe it was over, that the worst had passed, that the monster who tried to end me was dead, and I could finally stop waiting for the next betrayal. But peace doesn't live in houses like this. Not in the corners, not in the blood-soaked hallways, not in the heart of a man like Dario Ballenti. He wasn't beside me when I woke. Only his scent lingered, warm and sharp, on the pillow. A note sat folded on the nightstand. Downstairs. Don't open the study door. Not yet. My blood ran cold. I found him in the war room, same dark shirt, same quiet fury, but something was different this time. His right hand was clenched tight, his knuckles pale. On the table sat a file, thick, stained, old. He didn't look up when I entered. "You opened it," I said. He nodded once. I reached for it. He didn't stop me. Inside the file were transcripts, emails, bank records. But what stopped my breath was the photo clipped to the front, a face I trusted, one I never questioned. Isabel, my friend, my former nurse, the woman who sat by my bed while I healed, who brought me water, fixed my hair, and told me Dario never came, the woman who cried when I cried, the woman who vanished the day I was discharged. "She was paid," Dario said, voice flat, "to monitor your recovery, to make sure no one could trace the attempt back to the traitor inside my house." I couldn't breathe. "You think she—" "No," he said, "she didn't pull the trigger, but she made sure the shooter knew where you'd be." I pressed my hand to my stomach. Isabel. She'd braided my hair, held my hand, lied to my face. I sat down, hard. "There's more," he said. I didn't want more, but he gave it to me anyway. "She was paid through a shell account, one that links back to someone inside my father's old crew." I blinked. "Your father's crew?" "Before I took over, before I cleaned out the worst of them." "You think one of them still has reach?" "I think," he said slowly, "they never lost it." My stomach turned. Because I'd spent years wondering who hated me enough to want me dead. Now I realized it wasn't personal. It was strategic. I was leverage, collateral, punishment for something Dario did long before I ever touched his world. And they used me to send a message. I looked at him then, really looked, and saw it. The guilt he'd been hiding behind strategy and violence and control, because this wasn't about power anymore. It was about loss, regret. The kind that builds a cage inside your ribs and never lets you breathe. I stood, crossed the room, and this time when I touched his face, he didn't flinch. "You didn't fail me," I said. His eyes met mine. "You think I believe that?" "I need you to." His voice cracked. "I let you die." "No," I whispered. "You let me live, and now we finish this." He didn't kiss me, didn't say thank you. He just nodded, like I'd handed him a new weapon, and maybe I had, because now I wasn't his weakness. I was his reason. But later that night, when I went back upstairs, I found something that made my heart stop cold. A phone. Mine. The new one. Buzzing with a message I hadn't seen coming. "Unknown number. You should have stayed dead. There's a moment just before a war starts when everything feels still. Not calm, not quiet, just held. Like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see who pulls the trigger first. Dario pulled it. It happened in the dining hall, a room meant for formal dinners, power plays, and soft threats over expensive wine. But tonight, it was just him and me, and a long mahogany table set for two. He poured my wine, sat at the head, and slid an envelope across the table. I didn't touch it. I just watched him. "Who is it?" "Alonzo Fiora." I blinked. "He's retired. No one retires from this life, and your father trusted him. That was his mistake." Inside the envelope were photos, a warehouse, coordinates, and one handwritten note, penned in block letters I recognized from Dario's old notebooks. Isabel met him there. 2 days before the attack, I traced the edge of the paper with my nail. I thought he left the country. "He did," Dario said. "But he came back the second he thought I was distracted." Distracted by me. He didn't respond, didn't need to, because we both knew it was true. I looked up at him. "So what happens now?" He stood, and just like that, I knew. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a declaration. "I'm calling the families." My chest tightened. "The commission?" "Yes." "You're going to expose Alonzo?" "No," he said. "I'm going to burn him, and I want every family to watch." That's when I understood. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about power. Dario wasn't just retaliating. He was reminding them who he was, and who I was. Not some forgotten wife. Not a ghost. A Ballenti. I crossed to him slowly, rested my palm against his chest. "Are you sure?" His hand came up, covering mine. "I made my choice the day I let you walk into that cathedral." My breath caught. "I'm making another now. Before I tell you what happens next, we're almost at the end, and I need you to finish this with me. I need you to know what a man like my husband does when they touch what is his. Now, back to the moment that decided everything." The meeting was held 2 nights later. Neutral ground, glass walls, armed guards at every corner. I wasn't supposed to be there. But Dario brought me anyway. He didn't say why. He didn't need to. Because when the 5 families sat down and saw me at his side, No one dared speak first. He gave them the file, the proof, the threat. "This is what happens," he said, voice low and calm, "when you touch what's mine." Silence. Then murmurs, a nod from the Greeks, a shrug from the Russians. Only the Spaniard spoke. "What do you want from us?" Dario smiled. "Nothing." He stood. "I don't need your permission. I already gave my answer." When we left, I didn't speak, not until we were in the car, miles from the compound. "You just declared war." "No," he said. "I reminded them who I am." "And who am I?" He turned his head, and in the kind of voice that leaves scars, he said, "The only person who could have ruined me." But I didn't ruin him. I chose him. And when we got home, I showed him exactly what that meant. I didn't mean to fall asleep in his arms again, but I did. Right after the war was declared, right after the fire in his voice scorched every name that ever tried to erase me, he didn't make love to me that night. He didn't take. He held. And for the first time, I believed it wasn't just about power. It was about me. When I woke, he was already gone. But this time, he left the door open. A message. That I wasn't locked in. That I wasn't a secret. That I could go where I wanted. So I did. I found him in the room I'd avoided for days, the greenhouse, built for his mother, maintained by his staff, lined with white roses that never died, no matter how hard the world tried to kill them. He stood at the far wall, sleeves rolled, fingers covered in dirt. When he heard me enter, he didn't turn. "You never asked why I kept it," he said quietly. "I figured it wasn't my place. You were always my place." My heart cracked. He plucked a white bloom and turned it in his fingers. "I used to come here when I needed to think," he said, "when I needed to be less. Less what? Less ruthless, less dangerous." He glanced at me. Less me. I crossed to him, slow, careful. But I didn't stop until we were toe-to-toe with only that single rose between us. "Tell me," I whispered, his jaw tensed. "Tell me why you left." He looked down. Not away. Down. And when he finally spoke, the words felt like a bruise. "I made a deal." My stomach dropped. "What kind of deal? One that kept you alive?" "Dario, I thought you were dead," he said, "but I knew if you weren't, if there was even a chance, I had to keep them away." "Who?" He hesitated. "The Riva family. Alessandra's, the almost bride. You said the wedding was for leverage." "It was. But it was more than that." He nodded once. "They found out you were alive. I don't know how, but they knew, and they offered me a choice. I couldn't breathe. Power or peace." He stepped closer. "I chose power. It shattered something in me, not because I didn't expect it, but because I knew what it cost him. They told me if I went to you, if I brought you home, they'd take your life to make a point." "So you married her?" "No," he said sharply. "I agreed to the appearance, that's all. No vows, no ties. And you thought that would be enough to protect me?" "I hoped it would." He held out the rose. I didn't take it. "Hope doesn't save lives, Dario." "I know," he said quietly, but I had nothing else left. Tears stung my eyes, not because he'd failed, but because he'd tried, because the cold, cruel, calculating man they feared had built a lie big enough to keep me alive. I took the rose, pressed it to my chest, and said the one thing I hadn't said in 2 years. "I forgive you." His breath caught, but he didn't speak. He just pulled me into his arms like he'd been waiting for that moment since the day he walked away. And maybe he had. I never imagined I'd stay. Not after the blood, the betrayal, the way he let the world believe I was gone. But here I was, still in his house, still wearing his shirt, still standing in front of the man who'd broken me, and then chose me all over again. I didn't say yes with words. I said it by not packing, by not running, by waking up next to him the next morning and reaching for his hand before I opened my eyes. And when his fingers closed around mine, tight and sure, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit until now. He never let me go. He found me in the courtyard just after breakfast. I was barefoot, wrapped in a robe, drinking espresso like I hadn't just spent the last 2 years trying to forget him. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, like he couldn't believe I was still here, like he didn't trust it to be real. I understood that. I didn't trust it either. "Say it again," he murmured. I looked up. "Say what?" "That you forgive me." My heart caught. I already did. He sat beside me, took the cup from my hand, set it down, and leaned in until our foreheads touched. "I don't deserve it," I whispered back. "I didn't ask you to." His hands cupped my jaw, strong, steady, but his voice cracked when he said it. "I missed you every day. I thought you were dead inside. I was. Silence. Then, you brought me back. We didn't kiss, because there was something deeper between us now, something quieter, more dangerous. Not the chaos of obsession or the hunger of reunion, but stillness. The kind that only happens after war, when the dust settles, and the only thing left standing is what was real all along. Later that afternoon, he took me through the halls, not the grand ones, the private ones, rooms I hadn't seen since before the attack, spaces he'd sealed off. He showed me where he'd kept the photos, my letters, a pendant I'd once lost and cried over for hours. He'd found it. And kept it, all this time. You never moved on, I whispered. I didn't want to. You didn't even try. I couldn't. That night, I sat across from him at dinner, and when he reached for my hand over the candlelight, I let him. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't have to. Because I already had, not just in body, in heart, in the parts of me that had been buried beneath fear and survival. I was yours before the vows, I said, and you were mine before the blood. I don't know how long we sat like that, but I know I didn't feel like a shadow anymore. I felt like a wife, the wife who stayed. I looked at it, the ring, still on his finger, still gleaming with that black steel edge I used to trace with my mouth when I thought the world couldn't touch us. He'd never offered to show me, but it was there, not hidden, not polished, just worn, like it belonged to him, like I did. It was late. I couldn't sleep again, not because of fear this time, but because of something quieter, something heavier. The kind of ache that lives in your chest when your heart starts to realize it's safe. I wandered into his room. He wasn't there. I found him on the balcony, shirt half unbuttoned, hair a little too messy for a man who claimed to be untouchable. He turned at the sound of my steps, didn't smile, didn't need to. You should be asleep, he said. I stepped into him. No nightmares tonight. He raised a brow. Then what woke you? You. He went still. I reached for his hand, took it, and turned it over. The ring caught the moonlight, still engraved, still mine. You never took it off, I whispered. Couldn't. Why? Because I was still yours. God, I didn't expect the tears, but they came, silent, slow, warm. He caught them before they could fall all the way. Thumb beneath my eye, breath on my skin. You think I didn't suffer? He asked softly. You think I didn't wake up every night knowing you thought I left you? My voice broke. You did leave me. His grip tightened. I left the world. Not you. I didn't speak, just pressed my forehead to his chest. Listened to the heart that had loved me in secret for 2 years, that had made deals with devils to keep me alive, that had bled and hunted and waited for this, for me. His lips touched my temple, then my cheek, then my mouth. And this time when we kissed, it wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about owning it. We didn't rush. We didn't speak. Just heat and breath and the kind of intimacy that has nothing to do with skin and everything to do with memory. His hands gripped my waist like he was afraid I'd disappear. My fingers curled into his hair like I was anchoring us both to something real. He carried me to the bed, laid me down with more reverence than I'd ever known. And when he finally touched me, it wasn't a man reclaiming something. It was a man giving it back. After he didn't pull away, didn't retreat into silence or strategy, he curled behind me, chest to my back, one arm around my waist like armor. And his voice, barely a whisper, was the only thing I heard before I slipped into sleep. Mean, Mia Luna? Then? Now. Always. We didn't tell anyone, not the guards, not the families, not even his second, because some things don't belong to the world. Some things are just ours. He took me to the cliffs just before midnight. No suit, no guards, no ceremony, just us. And a single candle burning between us, flickering in the sea wind like it knew something sacred was happening. I never got to give you a real wedding, he said. You did, I whispered. You just didn't stay. His jaw flexed, his hand reached for mine. This time I met him halfway. He pulled something from his coat pocket, a velvet ribbon, torn, frayed, black as ink. I blinked. I thought you'd give me a ring. I already did, he said. You kept it. He lifted my hand and tied the ribbon around my wrist, his fingers slow and certain. In old Sicilian tradition, he said, this meant forever. Before ink, before churches, before crowns. I stared down at the knot. It was tight, unmoving, permanent. I wanted him forever, the man, the myth, the one who left, and when I came back he had blood on his hands and my name still carved into his soul. I was yours before the vows, I whispered. He stepped closer, pressed his lips to my forehead. And now I vow again, he murmured, to protect you, to worship you, to ruin anyone who touches you. I looked up, eyes wet, voice soft. My vow is simpler. His brow lifted. Yeah, I choose you. He didn't flinch, didn't breathe. Then he pulled me into him, kissed me like it was the first time, held me like it was the last. No priest, no altar, just the sea and the night and the man who'd buried an empire beneath his feet to hold me again. I became his wife twice, once in fear, once in fire, both times with all my heart, and this time we love each other completely and by choice. 1 year later, it didn't happen all at once. Peace, I mean. It didn't arrive with fanfare or fireworks. It came in small, quiet moments, the kind I used to think weren't meant for people like us. It came in the way he still made coffee for me every morning, always in my favorite cup, the one with the tiny chip at the rim. In the way his men stopped flinching when I walked into a room. In the way the families started calling me Signora Ballenti again, with respect this time. With fear, but mostly, it came in the way he touched me like I was something sacred, every day, without fail. The world still turns, deals are still made in blood and power. Dario still wears his crown like it was made for him, because it was. And I never asked him to step down. I just asked him to come home. I never changed my last name, I never had to, because even when the world forgot I existed, his name stayed on my lips, and now it's stitched into everything. The guards nod when I pass, the staff knows I prefer lavender over rosewater, and the man who once disappeared without goodbye now refuses to leave the room unless he kisses me first. I kept the ribbon, the one he tied around my wrist the night we re-wed. It's hidden in a drawer I don't let anyone open, because it's not for display. It's for memory, for proof, that love doesn't have to be soft to be real, that sometimes it claws its way out of the grave and comes back burning. He still says it sometimes, when the lights are low and the night is thick, you were supposed to be gone. And I always whisper back, you were supposed to let me go. But we didn't, and we won't. A few months ago, we stood together on the balcony overlooking the sea, the same one where I once told him I hated him. Now, it's where he tells me every day that I was never a mistake, only a storm, the kind you don't survive, the kind you choose to stand in anyway. We don't talk about the past much, not anymore. We've bled enough for it. Now we build. Now we breathe. Now we live. And when people ask how we survived the fire, I tell them the truth. He didn't save me. I came back for him. I don't know what you expected when you started this story. Maybe a clean ending, maybe something lighter, but that's not what love looks like in our world. Not the kind that survives 2 years of silence. Not the kind that walks into a cathedral and stops a wedding in its tracks. Not the kind that chooses you, even when the rest of the world wants you dead. This was never about a fairy tale. It was about the fire, the war, the quiet moments after everything breaks, when the only thing left standing is the truth. And my truth is him, always him. I loved a man who wore power like armor and used silence like a weapon, and I hated him for it, but I never stopped being his wife, and he never stopped wearing my ring. So if you're still here, if you stayed through the chaos, through the blood, through every moment where I should have run, thank you. Because staying isn't easy, but sometimes it's everything. And now I can finally say this without fear. I stayed. He chose me. And together, we made the world bend. Tell me, would you have walked into that church? Would you have stopped the wedding? Or would you have let him go? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know who you would have been in my place. Like and subscribe so that you don't miss another story. Your participation helps this channel grow and keeps me writing and posting these stories. See you in the next one.